please.
Councilperson Fink,
Here.
Councilperson Kaufman,
Here.
Councilperson Stahl, Councilperson Fisher,
Here.
Councilperson Price,
Here.
Councilperson Lettner,
Here.
Councilperson Guard,
Here.
Mayor Lutz.
Here.
Would anybody care to offer an invocation? If you would like, please rise for a moment of silent reflection. Councilperson Lintner, please join us. Please lead us in a pledge.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Announcement of executive and information sessions, there were none. Are there any additions, deletions, or reorganization of the agenda needed? Could I have a motion to approve the agenda as published?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilperson Kaufman, second by Councilperson Fisher to approve the agenda as published. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. Next, citizen comment, non-agenda items only. The first sign-up we have is Frank Daltrey.
Hurry, only got 5 minutes.
Yep.
I'd like to acknowledge the veterans in the Daltrich family. I have an Uncle Harry that was in the Army. I have an Uncle John that was in the Army. I have a brother Cleon that's in the Army. And I have a brother Donald who's in the Army. They're all deceased. And I have a son that put 20 years in the Navy, which he's still active yet. And I'd like to, the reason I acknowledge them, I'd like to think that them and all the veterans helped make it possible so people could come before a forum here and come before the council and get their issues taken care of. If you remember, I was at last week's, or last meeting that we had, and I brought up the issue about not getting an occupancy permit. Now, 2 days later, I did get one in the mail, so I want to not acknowledge that to council. I got one in the mail, so I won't have to put the tenants out. And apparently, they understood what I was saying about, I paid for this part here. And this all stemmed from a bill that I supposedly owed back in 2019. Now, this went on for the past 3 years. I kept getting invoices. I got to know most of the clerks from getting invoices like this, late notices for this bill that I supposedly owed. I was put on the detailed aging report list. My name was put on there for late notices and all. So I just want to show council particularly and the mayor that I do pay my bills. So I found the check. Here is a copy of the check. If you'll notice, it has on there for deposit. This is the back of the check, and it has on there for a deposit. Somebody cashed a check here in the borough, but I put up with 3 years of hell with invoices and people let me know that, hey, you didn't pay this. This is what it all extended from. So my point of doing this is how many other people's names on that list that maybe shouldn't be on there. This is what I'm trying to get my point across to you. So. But I did, and it has the address, has everything on there. I finally got the check at the post office. So, but, not the post office, at
The bank.
The bank, sorry about that. But my point is, how many other people that maybe shouldn't have been on there? Folks, I'm 85 years old. I don't have time to do the borough's accounting. I got, between going to doctors and doing other things, I pay taxes to take care of that. And I just want to prove my point to the people. I did pay it, and I did get this. When I got this in the mail, I got no explanation with it. We all know what it's for, but just to let you know. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
Frank,
Somebody.
just on behalf of Columbia, I just want to apologize for any inconvenience these past 3 years that brought to you.
Well, but my question is, Frank, that check is dated May of 19. Why didn't you bring that check down in May?
However you've done your work back then, Leo, in 2019, 2020, we had people go through this office, coach people, you name it, yous were harring and firing like crazy. We had the borough manager, it didn't last, I think, 2 days here. When yous did your record, you might have inspected one day and did it so many other days later. First, I gotta see your.
No, what I'm saying is,
I gotta see your point.
when that check is cashed, you get the check back.
No, I don't get the check back.
I do.
No, they
I get
don't.
my checks back.
They don't send me checks that, they don't, they
Or
send
you
me-
could requested it from the bank and settled it in 19.
Well, I didn't know how I had paid it. This is what took so long. I knew I'd paid it, and I didn't know I'd paid it by check.
Okay.
So it took me all that
Well-
time. I finally went to the right person. I got a little bit of legal advice, and they told me what I can do and what I can't do. I went to the bank, and they wanted me to fill out a letter and send it, and I said, no, I ain't gonna do that. And she was nice enough to get me the check. So, got the address on it, Leo.
Yeah.
It's got here, it was deposited, somebody deposited here in the borough, I don't know who did it.
I would, if I were you, Frank, I would request, I get all the checks that we write come back to me the next month when they're cashed.
I get notification of the checking, but I don't get the checks
Well,
in the mail.
just like here, in your detailed
Yeah.
check report, it should say,
You wrote this
check
for this?
for $100
I
from
get
Columbia Borough.
notification of it, but I don't get the actual
Yeah.
checks that
With
I
that
put in.
notification, you should have been able to bring down here and rectify that.
Yeah, because I believe that, that was what they were looking for was, it wasn't,
No.
and the people that are here now were not the same people that were in the finance department in 2019, so.
Absolutely, and that's some of the problem here. These people are paying for some past sins, but again, if you have an account that you put checks into the bank, you have record of that. So, I mean, what?
You're right.
Why didn't somebody?
Yep.
In 3 years' time, why didn't somebody pick up on that? I could see there's new people, and going back then, I remember sitting here and watching people coming and going like crazy. And like I said, we had a borough manager, I don't think, last 2 days here.
Frank,
Thank you.
first of all, thank you for bringing this in. I realize this happened before my tenure, but I'm glad we got this done. I'm glad it got resolved. Can you turn it around? I just want to take a picture of this so I can give it to Tammy and so we can follow up with it. Thanks. Perfect. Oh, look, I got you too. Perfect. Anyway, I thank you for bringing this in. I apologize too that we didn't have it, we didn't find it, but we have it now. Sometimes these things do slip through the cracks, and I don't like when it happens, but I like trying to get a good resolution to it.
Yeah, and you're right, Frank. Maybe if other people on that list hear this tonight, they'll contact the borough and try to get it squared away.
If I was working on the job, I probably would have paid that the second time, because I didn't want the hassle.
Right.
But I put up with it long enough, as I got to get to the bottom of this and just get it taken care of. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That is it for the sign-ups. Next, Mayor Lutz, Chief Brommer.
Okay. First, I want to acknowledge, last week, and I didn't know about it ahead of time, a former Columbia resident who's up at the Masonic Homes right now celebrated her 105th birthday, Miss Emma Green. And I was very fortunate 5 years ago to attend her 100th birthday party up at the former Vigie Fire Hall. So I wanted to acknowledge that, and had I known about it earlier, I would have surely done a proclamation for Emma. Emma is probably, I'm hazarded to say, she's probably our oldest Columbia resident right now. So Emma, if you're hearing this, or any of your relatives, wish her a happy 105th from Columbia Borough. And the other thing, on a sad note, I got notified yesterday morning that former borough councilman John Collier passed away. John suffered from Parkinson's disease for quite a few years, and I think probably for the last, I'll say 10 years, John was down at Hamilton Arms, and his health continued to fail. John put his time here on council and did a good job while he was here working with the borough council. So to John's family, many condolences, and I didn't see anything on the funeral notice or anything like that. So you may want to check that out. Now, on another note, at the last meeting, there was some discussion about trash in the downtown. Here's some pictures of trash I took this week, of trash in the downtown. Now, and there was a little piece in the Sunday newspaper, if you may have seen it. But here's the thing. Probably a long time ago, quite a few years ago, I talked about the trash in the downtown. And I ran into the vendor who we purchased our trash receptacles from at a Boroughs Association Spring Legislative Conference. And he told me at that time, hey, you could send them back a couple at a time and we will refurbish them for you. Because I told him the tops were missing and the liners were missing and everything else. He said, send them back. Well, they still haven't been done, okay? And the trash is still piling up. We need to do something about this trash in the downtown. Now, let me say this. We have our local haulers picking up that trash. But here's the problem. It really got bad when the borough stopped collecting the trash. Our trash truck now is used for other things. That trash truck we used to pick up trash on borough properties. So then we relied on the haulers. And I'm not faulting the haulers, don't get me wrong. But in order for them to pick up the trash, they would have to take that lid, take it off, pull the liner out, and dump it. And what really should happen is the plastic can put back in and a plastic bag put back in. Well, that's a little much to, and then put the lid back on. That's a little much to expect from a local hauler who's doing this for us. I don't know the answer. I have a couple suggestions to it, but I think it's about time that we do something with the trash in the downtown. When you come down here on Saturday morning, some of those pictures were taken Saturday morning. When you come down here Saturday morning and the can's a foot over the top with trash, this don't send a good signal to our residents or to our visitors. We need to do something here. And the one up at 6th and Locust, codes went in Monday morning and tried to find who the person was who was putting their trash bags in there. Because we know it came from one of the residents in the neighborhood. But they weren't able to find anything to tie it to them with that. And there again, I really feel funny about having employees dumpster dive. You go sticking your hands in there, you don't know if there's a syringe in there or what else might be in there. To me, that's very unsanitary and dangerous. So now one suggestion, and I even saw up at CVS, and yes, I'm gonna call them out. I sent a letter to the home office of CVS about their trash can. And for a while, they did a pretty good job, but now they solved the problem. They took the trash can away. And I suspect that might be where the trash is picking up in front of the library, which behooves me how the trash can in front of the library gets filled up, you know, and the one at 6th and Locust. But anyhow, we're going to start the Adopt a Block program here in Columbia. I think the information is going to go out very shortly. There's piece going to get out. And maybe we ought to talk to the Columbia merchants and see if they want to adopt a can in the downtown here. It's much easier, I think it's much easier for someone to do it right. First, I think we need to fix the cans. But it's much easier for someone to pull the trash bag out when needed, empty it, and put another trash bag in there and put the lid back on. But I think council needs to talk about this, come up with a solution.
Maybe we need to start with the hauler to find a trash can solution that will work for them and work for us, instead of trying to just, because there's obviously not enough cans. And so we're gonna have to get at least a few new cans. We're gonna have to find a new solution, but I agree, we have to do something, and I disagree with the solution is to take away the street cans. That, to me, that's not a solution.
But, and my statement, and I'll stick by that statement, my statement was, yeah, if they're not going to be taken care of, then get rid of them.
Well, right.
But I think a time has come, as you said, Heather, we need to do something about it and fix them. You know, we have a can up at the town square. It has it's a big agate one with a different type lid on, where it's a little harder to stick a pizza box in it.
Yep.
Stuff like that. And you heard Mrs. Wickenheiser talk about the pizza boxes piled on top of them because they don't fit down in or can't go down in a hole. Maybe we need one that has some constriction to it, but the problem is the lids get thrown off.
Right.
And then they blow out in the street and vehicles run over them. And I saw a couple around town that are held on, the ones that are still left, they're held on with a hunk of wire, like baling twine or something.
I think that's where it comes, that we have to work with our hauler to find a solution that works for them and for us. That, you know, isn't so cumbersome for them, but it also does what we need it to do, is collect the trash and limit the ability to stuff residential trash bags into
Yep.
it.
And someone mentioned that possibly we should send the merchants or the owners of the properties on Locust Street, a letter mentioning to them, please ask your tenants to use the trash receptacles that you provide. And here's the problem, most of them have a dumpster in the back.
Right.
And they would have to walk almost around the block or something because some of them can't get out the back end of their buildings. So that's why the trash ends up out on the street in our trash cans. But anyhow, we did that several years ago. Deb crafted a letter and had them sent, so that, she probably still has that letter that we can pull back out and resend again to remind the business owners.
And, you know, the landlords there that, you know, if there are cans out front, and if your tenants are using them, and we find that goes back to you. That's on you, and you will be cited for that.
Yep. So, that's all I have, Chief.
Thank you.
Nothing at this time.
All right.
I just want to be clear on what Leo's saying. Is the cans the problem, that they're not emptied and the trash is overflowing? Or do they just don't care, they don't even go to the trash can, and like they used to do up at Fifth and Union and throw the trash in the street? What is going on?
It's a
Both.
combination,
Both,
they're
Frank.
both. Where there's cans, they're overflowing because people are stuffing them full right after they get, I mean, the hauler empties the street cans on Friday, Tuesdays and Fridays. On Friday morning, they're emptied. By Saturday morning, it's full again.
2 days a week?
Yep,
Yes.
Wouldn't it be beneficial to do it more days a week?
that may be the answer.
That may
I
be
don't
the,
know.
especially during the really busy, like the spring to fall.
What's it cost a day to empty? Any idea?
I'm not,
I don't know.
I'm
We'd have
not
to look
sure,
at that.
we would have to renegotiate with them. I
But
think.
one of the other problems though, Frank, is the cans, they had lids on them at one time. When they were new, they had a top on them that had a hole about this big, so you couldn't put a pizza box down in. Over time, they're missing,
Okay.
and the guys had to take them off to dump it.
Okay, I remember when this started, and we were talking about the apartment dwellers.
Yeah.
Is the one that's putting the trash in there. How many people have we cited?
We have cited people. I can't
No.
tell you a number. I know we've cited people.
If we can find out who it was, every now and then we will dig through the trash bag, look for an envelope or some evidence so we can guess or verify whose property the trash came from, and then we can cite them.
I know we cited an individual in the 300 block.
200 block.
200
it was,
block,
yeah.
twice.
To me, a solution would be more than 2 days a week. And then you have cameras. What do we have cameras for? Don't cameras pick that up?
But people have to understand a couple things. One, we don't have cameras shooting every street all the time. We have them in key locations so we can see certain things, but we can't always catch that. Two, the problem really is, and Mayor, you hit on this, it's people abusing the system, not our lack of picking up often enough,
Right.
not our running the street sweeper every day. It's changing the behavior of people here in town. Stop using the gutter as your trash cans, stop using these street cans as your residential waste cans. That's what we gotta get the message across. And I agree, let's get cans that you can't put a large kitchen trash bag or something in. It's just for small bags, cups, other things, and use your dumpster or whatever to throw your trash away.
Right.
I guess the other thing is, do we know that everybody has a trash hauler?
If it's a rental, they're required
They're
to.
required to.
So yes, if they don't, that's a problem, and they can't get their license renewed.
They supply the name of the hauler.
And
they
the day they're
renew their
picked up.
license.
Yeah, I
Yep.
do that. I
And,
got one.
and our local haulers will notify the borough if they're dropped from non-payment.
Right. And if it's an owner-occupied home, I don't say we've never had that kind of problem, but we rarely have that issue with an owner-occupied.
Problems in downtown. That's our main problem.
But there are owner-occupied units downtown.
Right. But, Leo, I think you're right too. I mean, as the businesses, I would hope that they would be invested to keep their sections clean as well, but your pictures were right outside of a business, so.
Went up Cherry Street yesterday, the new tobacco shop, or whatever you call it, at Fourth and Cherry. They have their own trash can sitting out front with a bag in it. What's wrong with that?
Yep.
Do you want that on Oak Street? Do you want that big trash? I don't know what type it is. but-
This was just a 30-gallon.
I would think on Lucky Street that we do want conformity.
We want a decorative trash can.
Right.
But there's nothing wrong with, if the merchants wish to adopt it, my gosh, I think we could even put a plaque on it
Right.
signifying it's, they're doing this can.
Yep. You wanna, yep.
Hello, Brad Chambers. So I was just, listening, and I think expecting the behavior to change on its own is probably the wrong thing to do because it hasn't so far. So I think putting cameras in front of the trash cans that you value would probably be a good idea because then you can at least have like a pretty high catch rate on people that continually offend. But otherwise, I think taking away trash cans would just increase the problem. So I don't know if you have someone to run analytics on what it would cost to maybe increase collection or divert resources, but I think you would need to look at it statistically.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. And Chief, we sort of went off the rails there, sorry.
Nothing.
Workshop items. 8A, review policies and procedures for special events and facilities use requests in Columbia. I know this has sort of been a while coming, so I was glad to see this was
Most
finally
certainly.
together, and I commend you guys for
Yes.
all the work on this.
Yes. Also includes Borough Manager Stivers. He was most certainly involved with it.
Yep.
This evening, if you're not familiar with her, Pam Armold, the Police Department admin, will be co-presenting on a topic that is near and dear to her heart. So Pam does manage the community events for the borough, and she's done that for quite a long time. How long? A decade. So, at Pam's urging, Borough Manager Stivers, Pam and I met a number of times last year to discuss this process. And out of our discussions, 2 key points came, which is we needed a standardized procedure, and we also needed greater consideration to safety and the financial impact to the borough. So we have some recommendations for you, and we're hoping to get some feedback from you on them. So, we're going to start out, first of all, with defining an event. And this PowerPoint, I believe all of you should have it. It was given to you previously. So I'm not going to read it. But any questions about that definition? Okay, next, a nonprofit organization is defined.
Chief, I
Yes.
think I had a question.
Sure.
I just want to make sure. It says an event may impact a public roadway, park, parking lot, or neighborhood. Just want to make sure.
So public locations.
Yes. Well, maybe this would be later. Like when I was looking at this, I was thinking, would it include borough-owned properties, for example, this property or the Market House? And if it does include like the Market House, would we want to put borough-owned properties in this definition?
I think further down in this PowerPoint will answer your question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
But thank you. All right. Any questions about nonprofit organization definition? No? Pretty straightforward. And then we have for-profit, business, individual, or other organization whose primary goal is making money. Okay, any questions about that? All right. Pam's going to step in and talk about the application.
The application to host an event is, you can find it on the Columbia Borough website. You can also find it on our Crime Watch page. Sometimes it's called facilities use, sometimes event. I need to get that straightened out, so it's always the same thing. And you can also pick up copies here at the borough. The borough-owned properties include, well, actually the parks, include Maple Park, Rotary Park, and Columbia River Park. And here listed are the amenities that those parks have for you to use. We also have parking lots that have been used. You can see them listed there. I did highlight the borough, state, and state roads because that is also has to go through PennDOT for approval as well as our approval. And then a list of organization-owned parks and who you can contact to rent those areas out. Those are not run by the borough.
I thought that was a good idea, including those in our information, because sometimes, people contact us and don't know who to contact, so that was great to include that.
And I do have a brochure that I created that we can sit out or send out
Yeah.
so that people can see that information.
So Columbia Crossing Building, I think everyone knows it is ours, but if you're using the facility itself, the rentals all go through Hope. One of the things that we're talking about now is often her events spill outside the footprint. How much leeway does she have to manage certain areas of the park itself that's related to an event versus how much do we simply step in and council has to approve it? So that's another detail we're still working out.
Councilwoman Fisher, those 2 slides, do they address your concerns?
I guess what I was concerned about was the Market House, because on page 16, you specifically cite the Market House. So I'm wondering if someone wants to do an event at the Market House, will they now have to fill out one of these? No.
That goes strictly through Chris Viera.
Okay. Okay.
Now, we do have an organization, actually, a privately owned business that wants to use the Market House as well as Third Street and the street right behind this building here, Sadie Lane. So that's also something we need to discuss. They would have to do a facility use to us to use the two streets.
Okay.
In addition to
In
the
addition.
one, in addition to going through Chris for the Market House.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
So, may I ask a question? So if somebody has an event scheduled at one of these other parks that aren't borough-owned, can they have access to the same services that somebody who's renting or having an event on borough-owned property, such as police, custodial help, safety cones, fire police?
I would say
are they-
it depends on the event, what type of event, how large, the impact, overall. But typically, if it's on private property, borough services would not be used.
Okay.
And if they would want them, that would be a separate contract for,
Yeah.
charge for service.
But take like National Night Out, is probably a good example. That literally is probably one of our bigger all-hands-on-deck kind of events where, yes, by that point, it's so big that, yeah, it's at Cloudfelters, but we're using, police officers are out there directing traffic, fire police are out there. If the event gets that big, where we know there's gonna be impact in the public area, then we get involved and we work through this.
And then with that, Chief, help me out here, with that, an event that large will also have our emergency management coordinator involved in that.
Absolutely.
So that's another part of it that we will be getting involved in.
Yes.
And we do have meetings for large events like Alba Twitch, sometimes
The craft show.
the craft shows. We actually call at least one person from that organization and we have meetings to discuss all of that, including emergency management.
The car show is also.
car show, yeah.
Yes,
Car show. Parades also, you do that,
absolutely.
because we have Jay in here, ready to go.
Okay, here are some of the requirements. So applications for special event permits pertaining to the borough. There is a 60-day requirement, so the application must be submitted at least 60 days prior to the event. However, if the borough so chooses to accept a late application, there is a $10 additional fee. And here are the application fees listed: $25 for nonprofit, $50 for profit, and $50 for-profit Columbia Borough businesses only, and $250 for profit non-Columbia Borough businesses.
And that's important because, and you have, of course, the year to say on the amount that we charge, but we are getting more applications for in-town businesses and also out-of-town businesses.
I have a question. First of all, I really like the prices that you, for the out-of-town, I really think that's all really fair. For the first bullet point, do you want to put a limit on when applications would be totally shut down and we won't even consider it after this?
Yes.
Well, that's up to you guys.
Okay.
I would say yes, and I would say 30 days.
30 days, okay. And then for the second bullet point, would we want to include individuals in that, or is it just for businesses?
I think that's fair, because we look at, even like if someone has a large birthday party, it
Yes,
could be a
that's-
family or individual that's doing it.
The block parties,
The block party.
Yeah, I was thinking that,
individuals,
the block
yes.
parties.
yes, good
Oh.
catch.
Do we want to do we want to specify that there's times where no fee is required? I don't know.
That gets into an interesting First Amendment
Oh,
issue.
true, yeah.
The standard is, if it's a free speech kind of event, they can't be denied a permit because they can't pay whatever the fees happen to be. So that's really on a case-by-case basis, you've got to look at, but there are likely going to be at some point in time, something where you're not going to be able to recover some of these fees. You can't deny someone if they can show that they can't afford to pay those fees if it's a First Amendment type of event, so.
Well, I'm just thinking like the block parties. You know, we have to somehow, like we have, I mean, that private person isn't really a nonprofit organization, but they're not really a for-profit business. So do we want to specify an individual?
You
Like,
could,
where
you could
does the
have
individual
a separate category, and I think you would want the fee to be much closer to the nonprofit organizations, right? Because they're not trying to.
Yeah, I think you just add a word in that second bullet point, you know, individuals or something like that.
$25 for nonprofit organizations / individuals.
Do you want to use the term resident?
Resident, yeah.
Resident,
yeah,
that's a good one,
That's
yeah.
what I was just gonna say, yeah.
Yes.
Good
Yeah.
call.
Yeah. And then again, anything, you know, remember, anything in this, you have,
Right.
council has the right to forego.
The other thing I'm trying to, I don't necessarily like the for-profit, non-Columbia Borough businesses, because that makes it sound like it's a non-borough-owned business. I want it, we need to say like for-profit, non-Columbia-based business, or not, for-profit business located
Yeah, we
outside
can,
of the
for a
borough.
business
Somehow we need to make that a little,
Yeah, not located within the borough, something like that.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
yeah. But I do agree that, you know, we have to charge the fees to, you know, we are seeing more and more businesses outside the borough, and you know what? Maybe that huge increase will kind of stimulate them to work with people here within the borough, and to get the event, and it, you know, it's a win-win for us.
Could I ask a question about the 250 fee? Does that begin to cover services that you provide?
Presentation here, we do list some additional cost
Okay.
as well that organizations, businesses may.
And it's your job, council's job, to look at these fees annually and see, are they not enough, or are they too much, whatever have you, and adjust the fees just by resolution, because you adopt them every year.
Sharon, are you suggesting maybe increasing that? Is that inadequate?
I don't want to do that.
No, well, look at,
I'm just wondering, because it seems like that wouldn't come close to.
Well, you have to
if
start
you have
somewhere.
a large event. Right, I understand that, but I'm just saying, if you have a very large event, that doesn't seem like
Oh,
it would begin
absolutely
to
not.
cover, that's why I asked, that's
That's
all.
an application fee.
I'm not
only, that's-
suggesting
yeah.
increasing.
the application fee would cover the time spent on the application itself. So think of it that way. So like the time Pam spends doing what she does, what Jack does looking at it with Mark, with getting everyone together to talk about it, that's what that fee is recovering.
Okay.
It's paying for that time. But
Okay.
the other time, after the application, that's all spelled out later.
Okay,
Make sense?
yep.
Yeah, because I was thinking that too, and I'm like, but, yeah.
Any further questions on this slide?
What do we think about the fees?
I think it's fair. I mean,
I do too.
the whole point of allowing access to property and our resources is to stimulate business, visitors, community. And I think it being at a loss adds value to all the residents here. I think it's a great deal, and here's how I see it. $250 is a fair price. And I don't see it as, hey, $50 for borough-located businesses is right, and $250 is like, hey, let's make some extra cash. I think $250 is the right, it's still cheap, and 50 is like a super added bonus for being here, right? So
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Oh, no, I agree.
I think it's right on. Yep.
Anyone else have a, one way or the other?
I think this gets us started.
Right.
And I know we've been working on this, I'll embarrass myself, because I know it's sat on my desk way too long, but this has been a year and a half that we've been talking and working through this. This will be a adjusted as we go kind of thing. Once, if we feel like it's too low or we're not getting where we need, we can adjust this. But I like the idea of getting this started now, get this process in place so we can start really running with it.
Yes, Frank?
Is this, and I think you did say, is this just for the application fee? Or
Yes.
does this include any services whatsoever?
Not yet, that's just the application fee.
Okay, so they fill out an application to get, maybe close the street off. Who brings the sawbucks up and who does all that?
That's our highway department does that.
All that's coming, Frank. It's-
All that's coming, yep.
There's
It's
more
all coming.
slides.
There's more in the presentation.
Okay, and is this a different way of permitting? This didn't go through the police department before, did it?
Yes, it did.
Oh, it always did?
Mhm.
Oh, I didn't know that, okay. All right, thank you.
Anything else to add on this one?
Yep.
Okay, as is standard, the certificate of insurance is required, and the coverage amounts, that's standard language as well. The site map is a standard requirement, and the notification is something relatively new, but we are requiring whoever is hosting the event to notify the adjacent properties or neighborhoods.
That's good.
I had two questions. The site map, my thought immediately goes, like, if I was doing this, I would want to know, did you want it to be professionally generated, or can I just, and we wouldn't need to
It doesn't need to
state
be.
that? Okay, and then the other thing would be the third bullet point, it was the communication to the neighborhood. Do we need verification that communication has been made, or
Just
just
verbal.
trust that they're doing it?
Verbal
Okay.
verification, yes.
I kind of think the borough should do that.
I
That would
agree.
be a lot of work.
I understand. I do
Talking
understand.
about
But
a
what
parade
about-
and everybody on the streets.
What about our notification on social media? Would that be sufficient? I think we're doing a much better job today communicating with the public.
I would rather
Right.
see a letter from the borough or a notification through the borough than some Joe Schmo out of town telling me they're having an event on my street this week. So
Well, I
you got-
think that's important if it's a large event that's covering a large area, but if it's like a neighborhood block party,
Right.
it would seem to me that the person wanting to shut the block off and host the party would
Yeah.
notify neighbors.
Yeah, if you would allow us maybe to use our discretion on this topic, because what we've done in the past, just the car show, for example, we spoke to the organizer of that event and, emphasized the importance to notify the neighbors, especially Sixth Street is an area that's not normally shut down, and I think this last year we did close it down, but they made the notifications, the Lions Club. So if you could allow us to use our discretion, if we so choose, we'll make.
I'm thinking specifically thinking about, if stuff that makes, to let the residents there know, because I know that's already could be a contentious situation because of, some things. So I don't know.
Here again, would a notification on social media be sufficient?
We have the ability to send out certain items.
Yes, in TextMega, we can put a section out. I think if something like Maple Park, we could also put a sign in the neighborhood or in the park saying an event Saturday, you know, this is,
I just think if it comes from the borough, it has
I know when we did large events, when I was down in Florida, we issued a letter that was their responsibility to have sent out. So that it came on city letterhead, but it was their responsibility. Then we needed most of them that were that big, they used a mailing company. And then we got a copy of the receipt from the mailing company with all the addresses the letter was sent to. And that was adequate proof that the notification. So we can look at, see what solution. Yeah. Correct.
Yeah, I'm not looking for us to mail it. We do have media channels.
I like the idea. It's in our parks. And we do it down at William and Newton or whatever have you. Probably at the pavilion.
I would say right.
Or right in front of the parking
Right near
area.
Corn Avenue, right there on the corner coming in, or just right outside.
Or whatever's being affected,
Yeah.
like the basketball things. Like at the basketball. Or, you know, if someone having a party in the pavilion. I think where, if that's how.
Maybe what we could do is have a discussion at our next meeting and talk about each of
And especially, anyway,
There's a box or a pole down it. For the application.
or
Well, Maple's parking too.
you would be surprised the amount of messages I get from people saying, hey, did you know there's something going on in the park today? Right. Right. But a lot of times it's space. Yes, we did. You know, so maybe just that little bit of education will help. Some of that, but yes, the borough does know.
You really-
Yeah, I do. I've been saying that a lot lately.
So one question I do have. We don't ever mention.
The next slide. I think it's the next slide.
Oh.
About food trucks and whether we require the safe serve.
That should be.
It is here, I assure you, on this slide.
It is.
Possibly the
I
next
know
one,
it
yes.
is. I saw.
director as far as what the fee amounts are. And a traffic controller may be required for certain events as well. What we are trying to convey to them is if they hold an event such as a race, safety is paramount, and they need to ensure that each intersection has some sort of traffic controller.
Does that traffic controller have to be trained, or,
No,
so I could do it?
you could. You just put a vest on you and, right.
I think there's a little caveat to that.
Yeah.
If they're going across a state highway, we need proper people.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's a borough street,
Yeah, and that goes into the planning. What we would do is sit down with the organizer and specify, as we do with like the car show or parades, which intersections are covered by borough personnel.
And that would probably be where they would encourage them to, if they need those traffic controllers and things, to work with the fire department, the fire police,
Right.
because they're obviously the experts in all of that.
Right, right.
Okay, next one. So alcohol is not allowed unless granted by borough council. There's a note about bouncy houses and the risk, drugs, smoking, gambling.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
stop there a second. When I read this, I agree with it 100%, but how do we fix how do you fix proper insurance? In other words, I don't know what that means. Do I need 100,000? Do I,
So we say 500,000 right now.
you say 500,000, but what about, is that saying the bouncy house must have additional? That's where I'm going.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
See what I mean?
I think the last National Night Out that we had, we actually rented the bouncy houses, and we got a copy of their insurance from them.
Okay, so the bouncy house vendor
The
yeah.
vendor,
has
correct.
insurance, okay,
Yes.
and we get a copy of that.
We also insisted
That
that
clears it
they
up. Thank
have
you.
somebody there running it.
Yes.
We don't want teenagers running it or anything.
Thank you, that clears it up, I like that.
And as Pam had already pointed out on the next point, parks are still open to the public, so they're reserving, space within that park, not controlling the entire park. And then there's a statement in there about lost property, and we're not responsible. If we recover lost property, it's held for about 30 days. Next,
Question,
yes.
on the third bullet point. We're just letting it up to the organizers to monitor drugs and smoking and gambling? I'm specifically thinking, and I'm gonna be perfectly honest here, I'm specifically thinking about the stuff in Maple Park. I continually see, oh, the people attending these events, they're openly smoking weed out there, they're openly doing drugs, and things like that. How are we,
No, for events such as that, the police will continue to respond to reports of it occurring. We will patrol those locations as well. But I think a statement like this puts it back on the organizer. They need to police themselves as well.
Right.
And make it very clear it's not permissible.
Going along with that, I had a question about the first bullet point with the alcohol. Because someone contacted me questioning when we allow alcohol to be served, sponsored by Friday, maybe places are serving some wine or something. Is the open container being enforced during, wondered if we're allowed to sponsor during events from one place to the other like that?
As it indicates here,
But, if you clearly saw someone with their, you would be able to step in.
typically, the organizer of the event should get a copy of all the vendors, like the food truck vendors and all that are required to have licenses, whatever. They usually get a copy of all those licenses. When we used to have the bridge, not the bridge bus, but
Does a transient business license last?
I believe it's 30 days, yes.
I'm just thinking, because I'm thinking, we have, like, the Women of the Moose, they have a craft fair twice a year, and they have a lot of the same vendors both times, so I'm just thinking,
remember, they're making money.
well, I know,
You're not talking.
any vendor. But, so this is only for like food vendors, right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting all kinds of stuff. Well, it says food and merchandise.
Yeah, you bring up a good point,
So-
because the vendors all have to have.
So,
They're still required to get a transient license.
I'm thinking about all the vendors at a craft fair, like, they're all selling
Oh.
merchandise.
That's different. That's,
Okay, well, that's
I
what
see
I'm
where you're
trying to
going,
figure out,
yeah.
that's what I'm trying to figure
Yeah.
out here, is,
We do that more for, like, we don't
I
pay
mean-
those people walk up down the street, and there's tons of kids there.
I think the difference is too, that event, the intent of that event is the craft, so I'm
Okay.
not going to require
each individual. So,
But in the case of a parade, the event is the parade, you have individuals
Okay.
selling various sort of merchandise.
okay, so if
There needs to
it's,
be some oversight, and just so you're aware, there's a background check exercise.
thank you, yeah, I was just trying to keep it all straight in my head, like, when is it required, not required, like, so that's helpful. Because then I started thinking, well, are we doing that for everyone that comes in to events at the market house, like, are they, so.
So the way that I look at this is, if the vendors are directly related to the event, like Chief was saying, if the craft show and there are people coming in with the different crafts and stuff, it's the event organizer's responsibility to vet the people coming in. If it's an event and people are coming to make money off the event outside of the actual event itself, then it's our responsibility to vet those people coming in separately.
So, at Albert Witch, I think there were like 4 different food trucks that were there as part of the event.
Right.
Would those 4 food trucks need a transient business license or no?
So I would say yes, because that's still, food trucks are a different beast
Okay.
coming outside of that. And the process is not difficult to get your food truck license.
Well, no, like I said, I'm
Yeah.
just trying to, but then
Yeah,
Holy Trinity and St. Paul's Episcopal would not, because they're selling food as part of the event within the event's footprint. Right? Or no?
yeah, we're going to think through that one.
Yeah. So-
Because they're not on their property anymore.
Right,
They're
they're not.
off-site.
So you're
Right.
talking about, it says here, all for profit, and technically, they're non-profit.
They're non-profit. Do not need a permit to sell at events.
Yeah.
So,
Huh,
yeah,
okay.
that would fall under that.
Yeah, they're not.
Okay.
Then has a food table, and they're selling food down there, not in a truck. To me, that's still a for-profit down there, outside off their property. I think they have to be vetted some process.
Fit license, and they need to show their food license. We usually have a real good rapport with all those vendors that come in. They know, they're required everywhere, so they know to supply that
Yeah.
information.
The problem comes in, and Chief mentioned it early on, you will have people who show up for these events posing as selling trinkets, things that have other intentions. And that's what we're trying to weed out and
Yeah,
protect
right.
from.
of there just because yeah, it's, well, first of all, it's gonna be closed, but second of all, that it's not really an option anymore, because PennDOT has pretty much shut that down.
Last year, though, that we tried to, and they were like, okay. And then a mess, they went to the streets around, put something on for parking, or the lot, that would go to us.
Just in closing, I do want to thank Pam. She's done a tremendous job,
Yes.
not only on this PowerPoint, but also. So this is a breakdown of the special event fees. To answer some of your people, also for police officer.
Column, are these really the people break all the nonprofit?
And we list some civil penalties there at the bottom if the policy is not followed. Do you have any opinion?
I do. When the special event policies and procedures not followed, the first offense, good, second offense, okay, there is no third chance. Second time is, you know, the fine and then revocation of privileges. That, I mean, just allowing them to continue to break our rules is not an option.
But if they have two offenses of the same.
No, I think, just looking at this, I am, especially when you said that the actual cost is what the highest amount you're charging there, right? That's the actual, so you're not charging anybody over what your actual cost is for a police officer or a public works employee. I think all of those are very reasonable. I think the civil penalties work within what you can charge for a civil penalty, so that's good to see. But yeah, I think that fee schedule works at least as a starting point, and you see where we go from there. And you're, at least with the for-profit businesses, even if they're a Columbia-based business, you're collecting something. It's not everything, but you're at least not losing, a ton of money for police overtime or anything.
Plumbing to get to this point.
Yes.
I mean, we scratched around at it for years and we talked about some things, but the important thing here is we're allowing people to have events, but we're not putting it on the taxpayer. That's the thing, that was always the rub, that an organization could come in technically and make some money, but it would be on the back of the taxpayer because the taxpayer would be paying for the overtime, for the public works, for the police, and things like that. That's, the picking up the trash. So that was always the rub. And I think this sets it straight. If you want to have an event, you're welcome. But you're going to pay. And then there again, as Evan said, the fees are reasonable. Technically, we can't charge more than what it actually costs us to do. We can't profit.
And we're not, but I think it's good that we're charging enough to recoup what we are out.
Absolutely.
Because like you said, it's not right that our taxpayers should have to pay for another business to come into town, use our park, use our services, and not have any skin in the game.
Yeah, you take like the car show. It's Jake right here, but Jake has at least 2 employees working that whole day. So it's like 2 employees, 8 hours at time and a half. That adds up.
When we are looking at the special event or it on the for-profit, not Columbia business, and then show, since it's nonprofit, it's this, since it's a Columbia business, it's discounted to this.
I think
What
that's,
the act-
yeah, I think
say,
that's easy.
This is
Jake-
what the actual cost is.
Jake, it's easy for Jake and the chief to break out how many hours.
Right, and
The
so.
officers or the public works work, yeah.
And so also for people looking through the packet and they're like, oh, so-and-so wants to do this event, and when they say, oh, so just trying to keep things in perspective.
Chief, just one question. What, is that $73 an hour for a police officer, 59 for a public works employee? Is that reflective of their actual, hourly rate, I'll say, or is that overtime? That's max, okay, gotcha.
I just want to commend you guys, everyone, for putting this together, and I know Jay Barninger has also been involved in ironing out all of the special event processes and procedures, and this is something you and I talked about, and just was one of those, we're getting to it, and so I'm really glad to see it finally come to fruition, and I think this is great. We had a few questions tonight. Okay.
Porta potty. When I looked online, I looked at several vendors, what they recommend. For the Alex Ridge Festival, they recommend a lot. And they went, first they went, then they went, I looked, I said, I don't, I guess
You may have 2,000, but you may only have 200 at any. So you want to plan for 200,000. So that cuts way down. Car show. There are porta pots on every borough, the market. That works. It's not for 10,000. Well, I think the way to put it, using that chart, how many people do you expect at any one know what you're trying to say, but I don't agree with you. I think you assign everyone that. It's up to you. You want to waive it. That's the reason for them coming. That's one of the reasons. I didn't see that.
Give them,
That's up on the screen right now.
That's the first column.
Yeah, yeah.
make the nonprofits the same as the for-profit and have us waive them, correct?
Oh, I see.
Is that what you're saying, Leo?
I thought.
Yeah,
No, go ahead.
well, I mean, it's up to you. Council votes, but, you know, we get considerable dollars tied up in public works and police at some of these large events. Now, if you wanna waive them, that's fine. But when you have, like I said, if you have two public works employees working, say, 8 hours at, say, the car show, at time and a half, that adds up. Police officers, what is it? How much an hour?
It's there.
73 $73 an hour, if you have two officers for that, you're talking 73 times 16 hours. Starts to add up.
I think the logic that we had behind that was, and we'll use the car show as probably a great example, is their profits are all then divided up among groups here in the borough. So, yes, there are costs, and I can tell you, we did a study where we looked at the actual cost of every event. And if you build nonprofits for the actual true cost to the borough, they would make nothing.
But-
If you look at all the time and energy and effort that goes in terms of planning and all the effort that goes into the actual event, and then clean up after the event, and emergency management services, if we build for all of that, these nonprofits wouldn't make money. So it's almost like that's our
Gift.
our skin in the game, or our contribution to some of these nonprofit organizations.
I think you're on a slippery slope there.
Sure.
Because, okay, who do you do it for and who you not do it for?
Well, and again, I like
I would
the,
rather you say, okay, we're gonna waive that for this event, and the other one, no, we're not waiving that for this event.
and it may come down to, if it's a nonprofit that is based or does work in the borough, is one fee. If it's a nonprofit from Allentown coming in here just because they want to do something at the river, maybe we should charge for them. Because they're not benefiting the borough itself directly.
I can tell you, having looked at several special events permits and ordinances over the last, couple years and in the last couple weeks after we first talked about it, most places do not charge for nonprofit events. Not saying that is, right or anything like that, but that's generally the kind of industry standard, I'll say. But you could certainly, do some kind of either more discounted rate for them or something like that if you wanted to get something for those services that you are doing.
Myself, I would say there'd be a minimum for nonprofit. Here's a basis for nonprofit. You figure out roughly what it's gonna cost, and you know what it's gonna cost a big event, but here's the least that you'll pay. There ought to be something, because it just seems like it isn't fair to the other people.
Evan, if we do it for one nonprofit, that we'd have to waive for all, correct, or not?
Well,
Not technically, is what I'll
Okay.
say. It gets,
Okay.
obviously, that gets real sticky real quickly.
I thought it just didn't seem quite.
I would, if I was making a suggestion, it would be to try to treat them all the same, whether it's you charge a small fee or you don't charge anything or whatever, because you're gonna get into some real political kind of arguments, I feel like, and I don't know if that's necessarily where you wanna go with that. That would be my thought.
But what scares me is, okay, you're saying you wanna do this, and we're saying, okay, the events we have, we might use 2 officers, we might use 2 public works guys. what happens is you get a big event and all of a sudden you need 5 public works guys and a half a dozen officers.
Well,
And
you
say,
could base,
oh,
you could do something based on the
you know,
size
oh
of the
my
event
gosh,
as well.
you know, we
Yeah.
bit the bullet on this one.
It's
And then you come back and you say, hey, Leo, you're over on your overtime budget. No, you gave it away.
You base that on the projected people and base it on when they get their permit, what they base it on.
The two big events that I know will use a lot of people are the parade and the car show. And they use police force, and they also do the road closures, and then street cleanup after. So I know there's a lot of time involved in those two events. One's a JC's, one's a Lions.
No, they're both Lions.
Are they both Lions now? Okay. So, I mean,
But they're all community events. I mean, those are
But that's-
community events.
We
They're not like-
justified that in the past, saying, these are community events
Right.
we need to be
Right.
part of.
Right.
well, when you look at everything else on there though, I can't think of any events that would take up people's time minus running
Right.
roadblocks.
And typically what happens with those is Public Works drops them off on Friday
Picks them up Monday.
and picks them up on Monday. So it's done during business hours. I personally am fine with this and not charging for
Well-
the nonprofit. Because like Eric said, we have the two big ones, and, you know, if we get to a point where we're expanding more, this is a living, breathing document.
Yep.
We can reevaluate.
And that was gonna be my comment, Heather. I like to play devil's advocate sometimes, but yeah, this is a living document. If you see that you're putting out more than what you expected to put out, then change it.
Right, which is why I asked to say, let's give that estimate on those facilities use requests. You know, what is our actual cost? Or estimated actual cost. But for a nonprofit, it's a community event.
Does nonprofit apply to both in the borough nonprofits and out of the borough nonprofits? All nonprofits?
No, I think there's two different.
The way, no.
No, right now it's all
Yeah,
nonprofits.
the way it's
Just
written.
all nonprofit?
Oh,
Should there
Do
be
we-
two
are we-
considerations for that?
Are we starting to see more out of the borough nonprofits? No.
Yeah, I think they say they're in communities.
Yeah. Because generally, that's the whole point of the nonprofit, is to support the community that they exist in. So they're gonna do stuff in their own community. I mean, and again, if we start seeing an influx, we can reevaluate this at a later time. But I think it looks great the way it is. Again, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, one other question. When the visitor center was in business, which I don't think that's going to happen anymore, we knew where the proceeds went from the bridge bust and with the arts and crafts on Locust Street. Where is the proceeds going now?
It depends who the sponsoring organization is for the event.
Like who?
Lions Club.
The Lions Club, they give money to CBAA,
They always pick a list of organizations they're
they
giving
pick
to.
a list of different organizations.
Okay.
The Christmas food boxes, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Who sponsored the last bridge bust?
The chamber,
The chamber,
Well, that was in business yet,
yeah.
yeah.
okay? And the last arts and crafts, who sponsored that?
Chamber.
And the Women of the Moose did the
Chamber did both
last.
of them.
The
no,
women-
on Locust Street.
Oh, that one,
Yeah,
okay.
let's take care of the whole couple blocks there. Yeah, I was curious on that, being at the chamber went out. Okay, thank you.
And chances are good that we may increase the number of special events that happen here. I think then we'll have to look at, do we want to put a limit on the number of major events each month that are allowed? The number of smaller events. One thing you don't want to do is have 4 major events in a row, and every weekend, you know, the town's tied up and things are going on, and now you're having a negative impact on the people. I think we'll just keep, like you said, we'll just keep walking through, you know, if we need to make some adjustments to it, we'll work that out. The other thing I'm thinking is, if we are successful and River Park Phase 3 is built, we're gonna open up the doors for a lot more special events down there. It's gonna attract a lot more people in wanting to do concerts, art shows, craft shows, other things. I think at that point, we may have to reevaluate how we do it.
Yes.
I was just wondering, do you have analytics, do you have data on how many events occur quarterly or annually that gets requested to the borough to use spaces? You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we keep a spreadsheet, Pam keeps it, and so we know how many events, down to weddings and other events, smaller events down at the crossing and everything. So we have a list, and at the end of the year, we know how many events actually took place, about how big they were.
That would be one way that you could make your decision as to what the rate should be per use. I think is probably,
We have approximately 12 to 15 annually.
okay, that's a good number. And Phase 3, you're building an amphitheater at the river, aren't you?
That's the plan.
Do you know what the interest for the amphitheater would be? What would it be used for?
I know when the public input was done to design that, and I wasn't here then, Mayor, I know you were part of those meetings, having an event space that would allow for live music was important for that area.
You plan on doing concerts at the river?
Yes.
Yes,
Not only concerts, there could be plays, there could be lectures, seminars, those kind of things.
Be like similar to Lawrence Park.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, anything else on the special event section? No? Again, thank you all. This was
Great job.
a great job.
Thank you.
8B, review amendment to chapter 220, article 7, signs. Evan.
Your step.
So this has certainly been a little while in the making. It got sped up. We had some issues with a particular sign that we realized we needed to make some significant changes to your sign ordinance to make sure that it was in compliance with the United States Constitution and the First Amendment, specifically a case that came down from the U.S. Supreme Court in 2015, Reed versus the town of Gilbert, Arizona. We went through, and there's not a ton of new things in this ordinance. There are certainly a couple of things relating to digital signs, and I think that may be expanded upon as we move forward. Those signs are coming, is what I'm telling you. They are coming, and you want to be ahead in regulating those rather than trying to play defense. They're much better than they used to be. If, what precipitated a lot of this was the sign that is out on Lancaster Avenue, the Kraus Auto Sales sign. That sign, for instance, in comparison to the one that's up here at the church, right? You can see the difference between what digital advertising has become. And so we wanted to, make sure that your ordinance was in compliance with the First Amendment, and also try to get ahead of a little bit of that. There's also a new section in here just relating to signs in the historic district as well. Very, very simple language, just to make sure that those get in front of HARB, and make sure that they are, that they're getting looked at, so you don't have things falling through the cracks there. But like I said, a lot of what you'll see is in is in section 220-47, the table that's there. You're treating a lot of, in your current ordinance, treating a lot of different types of organizations differently, which with the Reed case said specifically, you can't do that. So that's what we tried to do. Our summer intern this year, Courtney, took care of a lot of this, and I reviewed it and made sure we were where we needed to be. But I'm happy with what the changes that we've made here in this draft. So happy to answer any questions or anything that anybody has. Sharon and Mark helped a lot with it. Sharon, go ahead. Yep.
I have a question.
Of course.
Of course I do.
No, hey.
In 220-53, the prohibited signs. So I saw a section here where you did definitions. And unless I'm missing it, I didn't see one for moving or revolving. And that's mentioned in B there. Flashing, blinking, twinkling, animated has been crossed out. But then it says moving and revolving signs of any type. So is flashing then considered moving? I mean, like a flashing open sign, or, because in the front here, under D, there's some definitions, but I didn't see those two listed.
So I think, so a flashing sign is defined in there, and then we also define the digital open business display, which is signs that remain static for at least 4 to 10 seconds. And that's kind of where we want to get to with these digital signs, so that they're not, it doesn't appear that they're flashing.
Or videos.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And under the same one, 220-53, down at the letter F, who decides what images are going to be obscene or pornographic? I mean, or invoking violence? I mean, is that subjective, or is that going to be decided by who?
Inherently, that is a little bit subjective, but those are things that throughout the U.S. Supreme Court's jurisprudence, going back very, very far, are kind of, I don't want to say defined terms because they're not defined, but they are, you've been given examples of those throughout, and we can work to figure out whether those are, whether they fall into those categories that are not protected speech under the First Amendment. So those kind of, right, obscene, pornographic, invoking violence, that speech is not protected under the First Amendment, so you have much more latitude to regulate that as a government. Again, that's not, it's inherently a little bit subjective. There's no way to define everything that could be pornographic or could invoke violence, but there's examples that we have that we can work with. So that's not just they're not just random terms that we've put in here, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I can tell you, this is an extremely difficult issue to regulate. Anyone who's ever regulated zoning for a job finds signs the most difficult thing to deal with. The Supreme Court case that Evan mentioned really was a case that talked about a church putting up temporary signs to direct people to their facilities, and they were told to take them down. But then they said, well, real estate agents are allowed to put up signs directing people to an open house. Why are we being treated differently than them? And went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they said, you're right, you can't regulate signs based on content. Your laws have to be content neutral. You can regulate size, location, color, things that would apply to everybody, but you can't regulate, and I'll go to an extreme, you can't say we allow all Democrat signs, but not a Republican sign is allowed anywhere here in town. That's not allowed. And that's the kind of level that some communities try to get to say that we allow this type of sign but not that. And they said, absolutely not. Not allowed. First Amendment, free speech rights, you're allowed to make comments. So we had to go through and get rid of a lot of the stuff that's in there. Regulating it and determining what does and does not meet these regulations is not easy.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. It's tough for every community.
Well, and along these sign lines, yesterday, someone who actually is in the borough here on a committee asked me why we had so many of the green parking meter signs that went up, because it had been said that it was working. People were using it prior to those signs going up. And she said she thought there was way too many of them and that they looked kind of out of place. So,
Same person I'm sure who I spoke to today.
oh, okay. Well, I didn't know if she wanted me to say her name, so,
So,
okay.
You know, for us, it was just a marketing strategy
Yeah.
that we thought was needed. Initially, when we devised the plan, we talked about putting 8 per block.
Wow.
Right, so we reduced it to 4.
Are they considered permanent? I mean, eventually, when people get the hang of this, can they be removed?
They certainly can.
Okay,
They are
that's
not
something to
permanent.
think about then,
Yes.
maybe. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
And that was guidance from Park Mobile, and they had done this in other communities. And they did say that it's almost better to have a few too many initially. And then if we feel like it's not needed, we can take them down. But
Were they part of the Park Mobile
Package we got? Yep.
package that we got?
Yep.
Okay, because she did ask me that if we paid separate
Yeah, I
for
just
them.
wanted to mention, those were at no cost to us.
Okay,
whatsoever.
good.
They're part of the
Yeah.
Park Mobile fee that we got,
All right.
or the
Thank you.
program we got, I should say.
Evan, what I didn't see in this sign, in this, is, it used to be that, it used to say in there that you were not permitted to affix any sign to any borough property. In other words, we have people who would tape signs on our stop sign posts, our street light posts and things like that. I don't see that. And then there was also no off-premise signage permitted without the approval of the owner of the property. So, you know, people would go around and stick signs
In somebody else's
in
yard.
someone else's yard, advertising a roofing company or whatever have you, those kind of things. Plaster them all over the place. So I don't see that.
We could certainly add that in. What I can tell you is that that's technically a trespass, right? That could be prosecuted as trespassing if, you know, if someone, I always laugh when I see those kinds of things on utility poles, for instance, right? Like, there's a phone number right there, like, I can call it and we can, you know, figure out who you are. So that's, we could certainly add that in, but that should be covered under trespassing under the crimes code.
Okay, so if this is, I'll say, approved, then any off-premise signage attached to our poles, whatever have you, or any PPL, then that will go in under some statute with trespass, and we need to look at
That
that.
should be, yeah.
Well,
Yep.
there's a whole section here on off-premise signs.
Yeah, it's still
But
in.
it's not specific in there, not to what I could read. Now, my reading comprehension is subject, but.
Yeah, because we,
Because there's nothing more disgusting than to see yard sale signs that are on an 8.5 and 11 sheet of paper that no one can read going by on it, in a car. Plastered all over every telephone pole and every street light pole and everything else all over the community. And then when you put them on certain things and you take them off, you take the tape off or the nails out of the trees, whatever, have you, or the poles, then you have problems. It pulls the paint. For example, these light standards, when they tape them on there and you take them off, it pulls the paint right off the pole, then we gotta spend bear the expense to paint the poles again.
yeah, I mean, we could certainly
And they're powder coated.
add a sub-paragraph into that 220-56 and just say that and make it a civil violation of the ordinance as well, if that's something council wanted to do, that's,
I think it's important because we have been, and I commend our code department and others. I think we have come a long way in keeping that trash out of the community by taking those signs down. If you go in other communities, every corner, it looks like a billboard, all these different colored pieces of construction paper and everything else tacked to poles, you know, and then it rains, and then they wind up in the street. And that's the other part of it.
Evan, I know this is probably getting too picky, was it? But at one time when the memorial bricks were put out at the plaza on each side of the area, they said there would be no signs allowed for anything, like, and I've seen real estate signs, I've seen signs for fruit markets and different things out there that initially, when that area was proposed and they were planning it, they said there would not be because it's an area of memorial.
Well, and there
I guess
again,
that can-
there again, that's just what I said,
Can it
Sharon.
fall into this?
It's borough-owned property.
Okay.
That was gonna be my question.
Okay.
That's a borough-owned piece of property.
Okay,
Yeah, then we could definitely, we can add that very easily to this, and that would cover all of those things. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
all right, thanks.
Yes, Frank?
So you see a yard sale sign on a telephone pole. You see the name, the address and everything else. How can you prosecute that owner unless somebody else put it up?
Wait, hold on.
What we do is we take pictures of it on the pole,
Yeah,
take it down, and then you have,
then
then
you
you
have,
can cite them.
yeah.
Yeah, but how do you know the owner of that put them up? It's gonna go to JP and
You interview the owner.
Yeah.
See if they did.
you're the owner of the paper, but it didn't say that I, the owner, put it on the pole. You know,
Well,
I'm just.
We have
I think
su-
the
we have
standard is
successfully
a,
prosecuted.
the standard is a reasonable doubt, and I think it's hard to, if you put up a sign for a yard sale at your house, I don't, normally, somebody from 3 blocks over is not putting up a yard sale sign about your house, right?
Okay.
But, yeah,
I see them up and down Purple's Lane, yard sales downtown,
Yeah.
Third Street,
Yeah.
whatever. Another question, does this control size-wise, and did it change?
it does, and I don't believe we,
I don't think we changed.
I don't think we changed that, yeah, we left that the same as, cause you're, again, this was about getting this in compliance really with the First Amendment, and so we left all of that stuff, cause that's what council had, in the past had determined was, the correct sizing, and you gotta kinda trust that a little bit, and it seems like that's working okay.
Okay.
Did you have an issue with sizing?
Is there exceptions? Such and such can have a bigger sign, or this is a.
There are still
This is a-
categories of signs.
A grand opening and.
Yeah,
you
there,
know.
there are still categories of signs, just not based upon who's putting the sign up generally, so, but as a rule, there aren't a ton of exceptions within that,
No.
within, so, like a directional sign or, a sign that identifies the name or occupation of what somebody's doing, they have different size requirements, and you can do that, but those are all just based upon the type of sign, not what the sign says, so. Yeah. Okay.
I thought it looked good.
Yeah. Did we, or didn't we get to the point where we charge a permit to put a sign up? We're charging permits for everything else. Was that talked
Is there a
about?
sign?
So,
If it's required to go to zoning, there is a
There should be,
permit fee.
yep,
There is a permit fee.
yep,
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
and we do charge a fee for the handicap signs. That when they go up, there is a application and a fee for people to get a handicap sign, then there's a renewal for that. So some, depending on the type, but some yes, some no.
I remember that years ago, it was a $50 fee, and every year there was I guess they called it a maintenance fee. Is that still go or not?
So we still charge a fee and then we loop back with the applicant every year to make sure that they're still using that sign.
But there's not a fee charge.
We don't charge the same fee every year now, do not.
It used to be like that.
Anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns? Like I said, I thought it looked good. I was happy with everything and glad to see the definitions in there and
That was a big thing too, was getting actual definitions in there, not at the end of the ordinance this time, so.
and getting all of the, subjective stuff out of there.
Hugely important. Yep, yep. So if you'd like, I can bring, since we've talked about it here, have this ready to go for your meeting next Tuesday and have authorization to advertise and start the process. Because this is part of your zoning ordinance, it's gotta go to your planning commission
right.
and Lancaster County Planning Commission, and then we'll bring it back once that process is done. So,
And I will say this, fair warning, we plan to go through the subdivision ordinance, the zoning ordinance, and other ordinances upon the completion of the comprehensive plan and see if there's any additional things. So there may be additional changes coming to this. But this is, we want to get at least this piece done now.
yep. Yeah. The problem becomes is if this ordinance isn't in compliance with the First Amendment, it really limits any kind of regulation you can do of almost any signs. So we needed to get this done now, so, yeah.
All right. We'll look for
Yep,
the vote next week
Week,
to
yep.
authorize. Then that can go under action items. All right, and then 8C, the proposed ordinance relating to care and feeding of feral animals.
So this came out of the presentation that we had a few weeks ago. In talking with Sharon Littner about this, what we ended up doing was kind of going with, it's one of the same ordinance that the consultant had kind of, put in place in several other municipalities. And we essentially replaced what was chapter 82, article 2 with this TNR ordinance that gives you a lot more control over the cat colonies and getting those registered, and hopefully will help you to take care of this problem that you have in a little bit better way and make sure that, animals are cared for and that, you're getting this problem under control.
The only question I have right now is how we go from here with registering the colonies and so forth if this passes. Because I got a couple copies of forms offline just to see what other places are
Yep.
doing. Because that's going to be a process.
Absolutely.
But I don't anticipate that we're going to have a whole bunch of people jumping up and down wanting to register right away. But I'm just saying, it will take some time and effort. Now, is that something that the CCAT team can take care of and then present that to the borough on an individual basis?
I think the idea with this ordinance would be that CCAT will be the sponsor organization that's
Okay.
contemplated in here. And so I think what I would like to see is, if you guys want to take the lead on it, maybe say, here's what we'd like to see in a form for the registration of those colonies. Present that to the borough. If council approves that, then
Okay.
we would have the form here, and anytime you need to register a colony somewhere, you would fill that out and send that in, give that to the borough here, and we would,
So, in other words, maybe that could be something that would appear like the facilities use request online.
Absolutely,
And then
yeah.
someone wanting to register would fill it out and bring it in.
absolutely, I think that makes a lot of
So-
sense.
I would rather have it go right to CCAT.
Okay.
I would rather not have the borough in it at all.
Okay.
Well, my question is, though, if they're registering with the borough so
Yeah.
that they don't get cited for
That-
feeding.
We need to have a copy of that. is what-
Right,
yeah.
but I mean, that's where I would
Okay.
imagine like Paula would work with, CCAT to say, hey, I'm getting complaints here, or is this person? I mean, or CCAT just gives us a copy to say these are the
Yeah.
registered
Yep. Okay, yeah, I think that works.
things,
Yep,
but, I don't think I would want them
okay.
to register with us, per se, since
And Alan is here, Chair of CAT. Did you want to weigh in on it at all, Alan?
No, as I'm thinking through it, I would rather let Borough do it and give the information to us, so it's less stuff for us to manage as volunteers, but I'd be happy to do it either way. Whatever we need to do.
Evan,
My,
80
my,
oh, go ahead.
my only concern is, okay, so we're saying if you're going to, you have to register the colony, regardless of who is registering it, who is tracking to make sure they're doing it right? Because I can say, I'm feeding a colony in my backyard, but that doesn't guarantee that I'm doing it right. And so, I mean, if Paula comes and sees that I've got food out all the time, and she goes to you and says, hey, you know, I got this address on South 9th Street that's got food out all the time, are they feeding a colony? And then you say, oh, yes, they are feeding a colony, but I'm still not doing it right. So that's my only concern is, how are we then making sure that it's being done properly?
Not to take anything away from you, but we would police it in the sense that, like, ideally, if the information was on a form and it came here either like through snail mail or someone dropped it off or virtually, right? And then it got forwarded to us. Just like we use calls that come into codes now as leads of where we're gonna go, we would use these, like, we get the county form, someone from the CCAT or CCAT would go out and do their due diligence.
Okay. That was my only concern is, you know, like, if we have to keep the registrations here, does that put the onus on us then to make sure it's being done right? And I don't
No, I
want that.
I don't think so, like, if we found someone that registered and didn't follow the suggestions and was non-compliant, then at that point, we would let codes know
Yep.
Okay.
that they're out of they're not following the new ordinance.
And especially if we've gone out, talked to them about it,
Right.
and then if it continues, it would have to become a code issue then, I guess.
My gut
Yeah.
says that the
Yeah.
people that are registering are the people that are doing it the right way.
Yeah.
You know, but
You
we
would-
can go back and forth about, it's
Right,
like people that care
Because
about their
they-
cats
or-
don't let their cats around, right?
right.
So, yeah.
Or they think they're doing it the right way because.
Well, that is the thing, though. I think what the problem is, this is how this whole, there's a lot of things that factored in to get to where we are now, but people see the cats, they don't know what to do. So the easiest thing to do is put a bowl of food out. And then doing that, you feel like you're helping. In a sense, you are keeping the cats alive, but you're perpetuating a problem because now all these unfixed cats are, 3 cats are eating, now there's 12 cats eating, then there's 30 cats eating. So if people just let us know, then we can go out, we'll explain like, hey, we're gonna be out Wednesday, don't feed the cats Monday or Tuesday. Because Wednesday, we're gonna put traps out with food in them, cats go in, we do our thing and bring them back. So, and like ideally, it would work out like that in every situation. My gut says that the first people that are like compliant and ready to fill out the form and hop on board are probably already doing it the right way. But as other forms trickle in, like, I feel confident to say that we could have someone come out and like observe and like
Yeah.
coach or offer suggestions to, hey, to be in compliance and for this to work, we need you to do it this way. And if they're not, we would be happy to.
Okay.
And that's right, Evan, the education is the big piece of this whole thing.
Right.
And, we're all learning, continually, things that we think are the right way to go.
That's how I started feeding 2 cats. That's how this started for me. So, and I just was like, I think this is the right thing to do, and found out, I was in the right direction. Does this get voted on tonight, or is this just discussed?
No, what we're discussing tonight, and then, once we have a draft ordinance, then we vote to advertise it at one meeting, and then the following meeting, we would vote to enact it.
Okay. Is there anything else you guys need from our committee, like a sample form, or what can we provide you guys to get this? What do you need from us to get this going and move forward? Is there any requests that you have from CCAT?
What I can tell you is that you don't need a registration form prior to us
Okay.
voting on this,
That
right?
can be
You
done
We
later?
can vote on it, and then if you have one ready, you can, say, hey, Borough, we think this is a good form.
Right.
And I would think the council will largely trust what you want, but we'll see about that. But, that's what, I don't think we need anything else, for this to move forward, as far as I'm
The
concerned.
form of those details aren't part of the ordinance, so we don't need that to adopt the ordinance.
Yep.
And that's good because the ones that I looked at, some had much more detail than others. And I'd prefer to stick with the simpler form, but we'll talk
Easier to
about
add
that.
stuff and take it away, right? Start with something basic. Also, we go, like, I'm thinking having pictures would be nice. I don't know how to upload that, but it would certainly help us identify cats, but, you know, we'll start off with something basic, and if we need to add more components, we can.
Yeah.
All right. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I thought it was good. I mean, it was pretty much just the Lower Allen Township with
Yep,
Yeah.
taking off Lower Allen Township, adding Columbia
yep,
Borough.
it was pretty straightforward, yeah.
Yeah, and I was fine with that, so.
Yep.
Thank you, Evan.
Yep.
Thank you, Ellen.
So Evan, I was wondering about 8213.
Okay.
Is it okay to just limit what we say there to pig, hog, and swine? Like, can I have chickens and a cow if I want to?
People do.
That was, I believe that section was actually one that we kind of pulled over from
That's in
Article
our
2
existing-
in your existing
yeah.
ordinance. I don't know, honestly, I don't know what your zoning ordinance says about,
There is a
have
section
a
in the
whole section
zoning
in there.
ordinance for
yeah,
chickens.
yeah.
Okay.
That's, hold on, hold on. Cause I wanna see here, I can't remember what, cause there's Article 1 and Article 3 in Chapter 82 as well, and, I forget what those, they may have addressed.
Chapter 82, start there.
Yeah, no, so actually it really doesn't. So Article 1 is the sale of baby fowl or rabbits, so that's pretty specific. And then Article 3 is the feeding of wild animals, so we left those two intact, because what you're doing here doesn't really affect either of those. It might be a good thought process to look at maybe some like livestock restrictions, you know, with the price of eggs nowadays, you might start to see some more. But obviously, again, you don't want, you know, somebody with a calf in their backyard either here, right? That's not really,
Without citing the section in the ordinance, it was my understanding that there is a section on chickens where I think it's 2 chickens and
It's-
so many feet.
Yeah, it's 22031, keeping of 1 or 2, it says pigeons, chickens, ducks, geese,
yeah.
permitted on a lot with a minimum lot area of 10,000 square feet. So yeah, it's in 22031.
That was kind of odd, just to see pigs, hogs, and swine, makes you wonder, what happened 50 years ago?
There was that goat in
Yeah.
the basement one day.
Yeah.
What's that?
And
We had a goat in the basement.
also, I would just like to put it out there to everybody. I am uncomfortable with imprisonment for 90 days. So just want to put that out there.
The district justice will fix that stuff.
Yeah.
I had a question on 8214.
Okay.
Now, it's covered in 82.8, I believe. Running at large, basically not allowing your animals to run. Let me get down here to stray cats. When I first read this, it makes sense, it's common sense, it feels like common sense that you shouldn't let a dog run around the neighborhood. But I know a lot of people let their cats, their house cats, out and they roam the neighborhood. 8214 just seems a little bit weak in that respect, even though it's covered earlier. I think perhaps maybe this should be clear in that it should state that the cat may leave your residence, but it has to stay on your own property. Because I think it's so easy to read into this, that you can just let the cat out and and it runs the neighborhood. It happens all over.
That's the way I read into it.
That is a good point, yeah. Yep. Yep. We can certainly do that. And there's, actually Sharon, this was another question that you would ask me about abandonment. And really allowing your pet to just run around outside, that, it's part of the state law. But really just letting it run, like if your cat let's say you let your cat out completely and it gets hit by a car.
Mm-hmm.
That really is a violation of the state animal cruelty code
Okay.
and constitutes abandonment of that, interestingly enough. So I agree with you, Todd. I think we can certainly strengthen that language to make it a little bit clearer here. And there are some other avenues that we could pursue if somebody is just letting their cats out running around.
Well, and the title of this is a little confusing when it says cat owners regarding stray cats. Well, if you're the owner, it's no longer
They're
stray,
stray.
is it?
That's very
I mean,
true.
you're letting it out, I
Yep.
guess, is
Mhm.
stray, but
But-
if you're claiming ownership,
It's not
it's sort of
stray.
contradictory in a
Yes.
way.
Yep.
In my opinion,
Mhm.
it seems that way.
We can certainly revise that section, yeah.
But some cats
Well,
that,
stray is defined earlier as any cat whose owner or keeper from time to time allows the cat to run free off of the property of the owner or keeper.
So it's different, stray versus feral.
right, and I was gonna say, if you're feeding a colony, they're going to go where they go. They're not gonna stay in the yard.
Very stray cat.
So that's, I don't know. Thank you for working on that,
Of
Evan.
course.
Yes.
Under definitions,
Mm-hmm.
we're using the word colony. That's lacking in the definitions. And really, what is it? Is it cats from the same litter? How many cats is it? There's nothing that explains that whatsoever.
I
I-
can send a definition of colony to Councilperson
Yeah.
to forward to.
Yeah, we could certainly absolutely.
You have a good one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
good catch, Frank. Let's put that in there.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, so really, what is it? What is a colony?
I
One,
would,
two or more cats that cohabitate outside together.
Two or more, don't have to be from the same litter.
No.
There's like 5 that live in like between me and my 2 neighbors' yards. There's 1 female and 4 males, and they just hang together. It's the colony. So they usually
He's
these
got a
outdoor
harem
feral
there.
cats will
She
like
has a harem.
buddy up with each other. So sometimes there's colonies of 50 cats, sometimes there's 4 or 5.
a hussy.
Why does she have to be a hussy when the one man with 4 women is a hussy?
They're all fixed, so.
Yeah, thank you for that.
yeah.
We're just having a side discussion about harem and, you know.
And that's what was going on before.
Or you're like, hey, you go, girl. All right.
That's all I
Any
have.
other questions, comments, or concerns on the proposed ordinance? So you'll have
Well,
revisions for us and,
Yeah, we'll get them in the next couple of days to Mark here, so we can have them in the packet for next Tuesday.
all right. All right,
Do you want
next.
to do this one next Tuesday as well?
Borough Council comments. Councilperson Brigard,
I have nothing, thank you.
Councilperson Fisher,
No, thank you.
Councilperson Kaufman.
I was gonna talk about Saturday night, but
Go ahead.
Saturday night, we had the pleasure of, Council President Heather, Mayor Lutz, and myself, I had the pleasure of attending the Columbia Fire Department annual banquet. They posted the video online, so you can see their video. Their stats are amazing, what they're doing. I can't fathom the amount of training they do. From 20 years ago when I was in to today is just remarkable. So, as we all stated there, and as I'm sure all of council, we appreciated the amount of time that the families, the firefighters themselves, and their related families put into the service. And it was a nice event. Thank you.
I just had a quick question since we were talking about trash. How is littering cited? Like, is that a quick ticket? I'm not sure. I'm not clear on that.
Non-traffic citation.
Okay. And do you, I know you put those reports out. Is that listed on there, how many have been issued, or where would I see that?
We get a council report. I don't believe that.
Like when you break down how many calls you have for like, I'm just going to say burglary, you know, whatever they would be. I don't want to use anything too awful, but, you know, burglary or harassment or something like that, you kind of break down the number of calls you have on that.
Would
Is
be accounted for, yes.
It is, okay, thank you. And one other quick thing, the sign I noticed on the Habitat project on South Fifth Street has been lying down for quite a while. We were gonna pick it up the other day, but I thought maybe you wanted it that way because of wind or something damaged. I didn't know, so I didn't touch it, but it's the large, big sign. So, thank you.
It's not this year,
Anything else? Adjourn.
No, I'm sorry, thank you.
Councilperson Price? Nothing. Nothing? No, and Eric said about our exciting night at the banquet. It was amazing to me, the amount of our employees were recognized there as well. They spend hours, you know, as employees of this borough, and they then turn around and spend all those hours training in the fire service or, you know, running calls and so forth. Justin Meisel was up there, Officers Kaiser and Kaiser up there in their hours, in their responses. You know, it's just, it's great. What?
I did have something, if I may. I'm sorry, coming back around. Look for an article in LNP coming in the coming days about CACAT.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, there's going to be a wonderful human interest story about reunion, feline and human reunion, as well as the success and accolades that are due to the Columbia Cat Action Team, their phenomenal success, and the example that they're giving to other municipalities in the county. They deserve a good article, and they're going to get one.
Thanks, Todd.
And one final word. 2023 is a municipal election year, and next week is the start, is the start of the petition signing. If you are interested in running for borough council or school board, and would like information on how to get on the ballot, you can, you know, send me an email, contact me, contact any member of council, any member of the school board, I'm sure will be willing to help you. You can pick up the packet down at the Lancaster County Election Office. You can also call them for information. I think it's 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks that you have to get the petition signed and to get on the ballot. But if you're interested and you have questions, do not hesitate to reach out. You know, it's always a good time.
So, one last thing quick. I got an email from Jay Barninger Monday. There was a fire down at the Columbia Wagon Works on the weekend. And I'll forward Jay's email to all of council, but I just wanted to say it here. Jay showed up on scene, and the summary of his whole email was the system worked. There was a fire in an unattended apartment building unit, started in the kitchen. The sprinkler system came on. The company responded quickly. They were able to keep the damage to a minimum. We had to shut the water off temporarily. Code compliance was involved with this. We were able to get everyone back in. Only a few units had to be, or a few families had to be relocated temporarily to get the place fixed. But Jay's whole point was, one, sprinklers save lives. And the fact that they had a working system in there, it worked and it helped. And then our team, Jay was on scene, police were down there, fire department responded quickly. Everything worked. Everything worked the way it was supposed to work. I think lives were saved, property damage was held to a minimum. And I just want to thank all those that did this and do this on a regular basis to show that this is how our team works together, and everyone did a great job.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes, Frank.
I just turned my phone on and I got a question or two here on the trash business.
Okay.
And I'd like to remember when they first started cleaning Locust Street, I think they took the street sweeper and they took the first 2 hours, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, and they would run that 2 hours every day. Why can't the borough run the trash truck first thing in the morning and clean every day? That way those would be empty to start with. They have it on here, why can't the borough do it? You know, because we have the trash truck, this is what they're saying.
Well, the trash truck is used for the yard waste recycling.
It is, and
But-
Jake and I have talked about this, it's a possibility. It takes 2 hours away from other tasks that those people are doing. So it's not just like, oh, we have all the people we need, and we can just always go out there and spend 2 hours every day emptying all the trash cans. It changes our ability to get other projects done. So we have to balance out, and it may come down to maybe River Valley picks up twice, and then we have to add in a trip too. I don't know. I agree that there's some more thought needs to go into
Right.
this, but maybe that is a possibility, Frank. Maybe
Okay.
it's
I'm just-
part of the solution. if
I'm
you will.
just passing it on.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
The trash truck was bought for the yard waste,
Yep,
so it was furnished by a grant.
yep.
It came from a grant, so it's being used according to the grant. The other part was there were problems with maybe a half a load of yard waste in it, and then you picked up trash and you went to dump, and you were paying premium at the landfill to dump yard waste when it should have been dumped at the borough, and vice versa. You go up to the borough thinking you had yard waste in the truck, and you go to dump, and next thing you know, you had trash all over the recycling center up there. So it got to be a problem with that, so it was brought back to its intended use.
Right.
I do know that Monday morning, Jake had his crews out there first thing, and they did Locust Street. And they picked up almost a whole truckload of trash just cleaning up Monday morning.
Yeah, their pickup truck was filled.
Yep,
I seen.
Yeah, so, I mean, we definitely have to figure out, we
Yep.
have to figure this out before spring gets here and it gets even worse.
yep.
So, all right. Announcement of next meeting at 7 PM on February 14th. Council will hold a regularly scheduled meeting. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilperson Lindner, second by Councilperson Kaufman, to adjourn at 9:17 PM. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? And we're adjourned.